Well, here we are, and I'm confused. The employment that we have officially is 3.7% unemployed. 3.7% of the working population is unemployed. And yet we're seeing problems within the economy. We're looking at heading into a recession. We're looking at, well, let me go to my next slide here and we can talk about what we're looking at here. Because this is really easy. I'm seeing bankruptcies go up. Bankruptcies. Now, if we had 3.7% of the population was unemployed, that means like 96.3% is employed. We should be robust. We should be going crazy. We should be doing all kinds of great things. But we're seeing bankruptcies are heading to great financial crisis levels and pre-COVID levels. Now, these were pretty bad times, and yet we only have 3.7% unemployment. And we're talking about the fact that we've seen all kinds of recession signs. We're seeing an inverted yield curve. We're seeing liquidity being pulled. We're seeing retail struggling, bankruptcies going up, yet we only have 3.7% unemployment. How is this possible? Let me go to the next slide. It just confuses me. I'm looking at this. We just got this. This is a U.S. manufacturing data. And it shows that U.S. manufacturing has been declining for almost over 2 years, and now it's gone negative. It's actually negative 4.24%, and yet we only have 3.7% unemployment. How is this even possible? You know, with 3.7%, that means virtually everybody is working. It should be a robust economy, but we're not. Let me go to my next one. So we have this kind of divergence. We have the establishment survey and we have the household survey. And everyone's talking about this discrepancy. It's either 3.4% unemployment or 3.7% unemployment. Either way, it's a phenomenal amount. It's just great, but the economy is not robust. And we're looking at higher interest rates. We're looking at the Federal Reserve has raised interest rates 5 or 6, 7, 8 times. So now we've got the Federal Reserve rates like over 5%. The prime rate is 8.5%. I just saw that the 10-year went up over 4% today. These are not good things, and yet we only have 3.7% unemployment. So let's just dive into that just a little bit here. So you know how I love the Federal Reserve electronic data. They have virtually everything there. And if you just ask questions, they give you answers. So I went into the Federal Reserve electronic data and said, how many people are there in the United States? Well, there's 335 million, 13,000. 13,000, that's a pretty exact number. And of course, you know, we've got a birth, death, and we've got people coming across the border. So it's changing all the time. But let's use 335 million as a pretty good population, might be even slightly higher than that. And then let's go into the next. I said, well, how many of these people are in the workforce? The total workforce. So in the total civilian labor force, as of May, that's a pretty good, that's only like 6 weeks ago, it's 166,800,000 people are working in the workforce. Now that's quite a bit. Now that's a non-farm payroll and farm payroll. That's everybody excluding the military. So it should be quite a bit. But I'm thinking to myself, well, there's 335 million. What about the rest of us? We've got 166, almost 167 million. What about the rest? Well, that's easy. I then went in and said, well, what is employment? How many people are unemployed? And it popped right out. Federal Reserve comes out and 6,097,000 people are unemployed. That's not very many. That goes back to 3.7%. You know, that's why they come up with 3.4 or 3.75, because only 6 million people are unemployed. That doesn't sound so terribly bad. But when you start thinking about the numbers, 166 million are in the workforce, 6 million of them are unemployed. What about the rest? No one is talking about the rest. So I went in and asked Federal Reserve electronic data again, how many people are of working age that aren't working, that aren't counted? And it came right out. Almost 100 million Americans of working age are not working. Well, there's your answer. That's why this is not so good. 100 million people that could work, that are working age, are not counted. They're uncounted in the workforce. Add 100 million to 6 million, you got 106 million people who aren't working in the United States. Let me go to my next slide. Now it's starting to make sense. So I said to myself, well, okay, so what happens to these people, this 100 million people who aren't working? Who are they? Well, I went to the Census Bureau and said, how many people have families? Maybe they have kids at home and one of the parents is staying home. So we have 35 million households with children under 18 years old. And that includes single moms and single dads and married people. So that picks up all the households, 35 million. Well, you can subtract that then. You can understand that there would be someone there. Now, you have to know that this is undercounted, because a lot of the people who are single moms and single dads, they're probably got both roles. They're probably working and are a single parent household. So they would be in the workforce, but we're not going to count them. We're going to give the benefit of this because I don't want to be accused of slanting this. So what about some more people? What about those that are disabled and can't work? So we're looking at the population of people that can't work. Yes, Federal Reserve comes right out. Here's 33,295,000 Americans with disabilities, 16 years and older. So we're not going to count the people under 16. And typically we don't count people who are 65 years and older because we figure they're really not in the workforce. We're talking about the prime workforce. But we have 33 million people who have disabilities. We're going to take them out of this 100 million as well. And let's see what that leaves us with. So if you have 98.8 million uncounted Americans that are working age that are not working, 35 million of them have children at home under 18. That leaves us 63.8 million Americans of working age that have no job. Let's take out the disabled. That's 33.3 million. That leaves us 35.5 million Americans that should be working, that are working age. They're not disabled. They don't have children at home, plus the 6 million that are officially counted. And you come up with 41.5 million Americans without a job. 41.5 million Americans do not have a job. And if you take 41.5 million divided by our total workforce, it comes out to be 24.8% of people that are of working age that don't have a job. 24.8%. Now that's why we're not robust, because they're not being counted. They're working age, they're able to do this, and they're not being counted. So someone is not counting them. They've changed the definitions. Somehow these people are working age and they're not employed, but they're not considered unemployed. They're considered not working. Now, it's the same thing, of course. They're not bringing in money. They're not adding to the bulk. They're looking, they have no future. This is a problem for all of us. So let's just go to my next slide. So that tells me that that's why we have bankruptcies. That's why we have manufacturing slowing down. That's why we're starting to look at a recession. I think that we're going to have a recession coming. I think it's going to be a severe recession. I think employment has already collapsed and we just don't recognize it. It's not being counted because there's been a slow decline over years. And these people who want a job don't get a job and they're not working. I don't know how they're getting by. Maybe they're doing cash, whatever it is. And if the economy slows down, we are definitely going to have a problem. And we need to start preparing for that fact. I've talked time and time and time again that if you have properties in any place that you feel that are at risk, we have some absolutely wonderful markets around the United States, particularly if you're in the real estate business like we are. You can do a 1031 exchange, get your properties out of Portland, get your properties out of Chicago, get your properties out of New York, New Jersey, Los Angeles, and bring them to one of the better markets around the United States. This is done very, very inexpensively. You do not have a capital gains event, and you can defer that tax. It's your right as a taxpayer to do this. No one can stop you from doing that. I highly recommend that you do that and get into areas that you're going to have a much better locations, much better future. If we can help in any way, let me go to my very next slide, and you can find me right here. So if I can help in any way, We're more than happy to. We'll talk to your spouse. We'll talk to your financial advisor. We'll talk to your brokers for sure. Try to make a plan and get this 1031 exchange going for you. If I can help in any way, I certainly will. My best to you. Bye-bye.